Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining both myself and Jacqueline from KnowBe4 today to talk around human-centered security. Personally, I'm a very big believer in always starting with the human experience whenever we think about technology. How does it help us? How does it impact us? How does it engage us? But then there is also, how do we manage it? We live in a very connected world, and that's truly a great thing. But there are people who will utilize such technology to unfairly profit from it. And both people and organizations need a multitude of ways to manage that. Now, before we do start, I just wanted to do some quick housekeeping. If you do think of any questions during the webinar, you can just pop them into the little question box at the bottom of the screen, and we're going to cover them off at the end during some dedicated Q&A time. Otherwise, we're just going to jump straight into it now. So, technology has really become a lifeline for businesses to stay connected, especially during this pandemic. People are always working in ways they may never have done before. Now, don't get me wrong, remote working was steadily on the rise well before COVID-19, but the pandemic has escalated the trend at a rapid rate, and it's really turned society into effectively the world's largest working from home experiment. As a result, we're now looking at a situation in which many people who had firstly been forced to embrace working from home might now actually prefer this new normal and not want to return to the original office model. Oh, sorry, I've just jumped a slide there, guys. It's just a little laggy on me. Much better. Now, this poses a difficult situation for organizations, as a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. And the same is true for cybersecurity, where a breach is often the result of a specific employee and their specific actions. With the sharp rise we've seen in this new way of working, distraction and confusion can occur. It's natural and it's to be expected. As a result, though, it can leave the employee a risk of being that weakest link in the chain. You only need to look at all the new ways we work within these working environments, the new platforms to sign up to log into, the Zoom links, the team meetings, house party requests. There's a range of remote working requirements that they're not familiar with, and they're having to adapt to this new normal. Unfortunately, as is common in our world today, people are being targeted and taken advantage of in these new unfamiliar environments. As such, we need to focus on how do we ensure we give people the required access, but we make sure while they have the required access, the employees also know what they should and shouldn't be doing. We need to make sure we mitigate the risks, not just to the organization, but to the employees themselves. As often personal devices are now being used within that corporate environment. And this use of personal devices can lead to potential access that employees' personal banking details, their child's school records, and a range of other private information being stored on those personal devices can potentially be accessed. Now, this problem is nothing new for organizations. It's simply escalated at an enormous rate. As I mentioned previously, the rise in working from home, it was increasing anyway, but it's just done a huge leapfrog forward due to COVID-19. With employees now having more emails, meeting requests, phone calls, invitations to platforms than ever before, it's just natural that the exposure rate is going to be far, far higher. And unfortunately, the days of the reasonably obvious scam, such as the rich Nigerian prince with promises of money, those days are gone. Attempted breaches, they're now far more professional, they're more detailed, and they're being a lot more strategic in their approach. Now, this next graphic, I think, is a really great representation of that new world we find ourselves in. Traditionally, as we can see here, we all met at the same location with the same purpose, to do our jobs. That location had a heavy security to help block outside potential threats. So it was managing the flow of data getting out, but also the data coming in. We had the ability to quickly ask the person next to us if we were confused about something we received in our inbox. Or likewise, we could easily engage IT support team if we had a question, as they're just walking distance from our own desk. The new work environment we find ourselves in, though, has far more distraction. we now have work-life balance, but that can be a distraction. We don't spend hours each day stuck in traffic, but as a result, we're logging in and out of systems at a much higher rate than previously. Distraction and confusion can occur constantly in this new environment, and we need to be even more vigilant than we have been previously. So, how do organizations ensure that their employees are not the weakest link in the security chain? How do we ensure we stay ahead of the game? Specifically, how can we help businesses like yourselves adapt to this ever-growing threat and enable your employees to continue to be productive, no matter where they are or what they're doing, but ensure they're ever vigilant against an attempted breach? This is why we've partnered with KnowBe4 to help work with you in consultation on how to achieve these outcomes and help ensure employee and organizational safety. Now, I'll be passing to Jacqueline Jane now. Jacqueline has over 20 years experience and is a real conduit between people and technology, ranging from HR and IT, finance, travel, sales, marketing. She's a specialist in cybersecurity and awareness programs, user experience, as well as learning and development. So I'd love to introduce Jacqueline now, and I'll pass over to yourself, Jacqueline.
Hey everybody, how are you going? Welcome. Some housekeeping for myself today as well. Firstly, it's a pleasure and an honour to be partnering with Delv for this presentation today. And I've recently moved house and I have 2 cats that are at the moment running up and down the hallway with what I term hallway Olympics. So if you hear a strange noise, that's what it is. And they might visit me on the desk if we're lucky. Now, come on, no, forward. Bear with me. I've got some lag as well. Oops, lots of lag. Shane, can you move that a couple to my first slide, please? Looks like we all have lag. I shall start. So the outbreak of COVID-19, thank you, has seen many organisations shift their people to work remotely. Without the required preparation, their people are potentially a lot more vulnerable as hackers increase their onslaught of cyber attacks. And across the globe, there's been a dramatic increase in COVID-19 related cyber attacks. This is due to the very nature of COVID-19, as it's caused a lot of fear and panic, which hackers, as I prefer to call them cyber criminals, use to their advantage. So when you're working without your IT support team down the hall, as Shane mentioned before, or you don't have a colleague sitting close by that you can speak to, a suspicious email received at home seems different somehow. Will it work? Don't you love the technical things these days? So today I'll take you through a snapshot of the cyber threat landscape as it relates to remote working and share some examples of in-the-wild attacks and some considerations for employees and employers when it comes to cybersecurity and remote working. Next slide, maybe Shane. It's just not playing from my end for some reason. Caught in a loop. Oh, there we go. So let's start with the current cyber threat landscape. If we have a look at the fact that people are working a lot more from home and they're not thinking about cybersecurity at all. Oh, there we go. Will it work? Nope, another click for me, Shane. So they're not thinking about organisational security, and your average remote worker is sitting at a makeshift desk trying to balance helping their kids with their homework, attending online meetings, and themselves learning how to use all the new digital workplace platforms, applications and processes before they even shower for the day. And security really is the last thing on their mind. And cyber attacks focused on employers as targets. They're much more than ever. So phishing remains the single most used attack vector to allow the bad guys direct access to your organization's endpoints, credentials, applications, and data. With successful data breaches being attributed to 70 to 90% success rate, if a phishing email is presented to one of your employees, it means your security solutions that you have in place have not been able to contain it. And this happens a lot. And what happens is the malicious emails get to the employee and they are your last line of defense. One more click, Shane. And attackers and scammers are increasingly aligning with remote working. These people are really clever. So cyber criminals conjure up scams that seem familiar to users. Their use of shipping, billing, and banking stories, as well as the use of impersonated domains and business and people, all traditionally have worked in the favour of the bad guy. But the new scams are being moulded around the current work circumstances. And for example, we've seen a massive growth in Zoom-related attacks simply because of Zoom's increase in the popularity in businesses. And this alternative universe of work scenarios, we need to acknowledge that people need to just work differently from the in-office ways they used to, and they also need to look at secure ways of putting things in a different perspective and put that cybersecurity responsibility onto the user. Whereas before it traditionally sat with IT, everybody in the industry knows that cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility, and we need to make that shift, and I am seeing it more. The shift is moving towards the end user as it is their responsibility. So when we take a closer look at COVID and corona-related domain names and registrations, what we find is there was an increase of, if we have a look at the line, so the graph shows the number of domains registered per day that contained COVID-19 related term or something closely resembling such a term in their domain name, which now total over 60,000, is not far off the 100,000. And the red line is the count of these domains that are likely to be malicious or high risk, as domain tools have pointed out in their research. And the blue line indicates those likely to be low risk. So this leads us to the observation that the cyber threat landscape for COVID-19 has made such an impact in what we're doing day to day. Will it let me click? Nope. Click again for me, Shane. Please. Thank you. So here what we find is Google, one more click, actually do 3 clicks, that'll be great, and then I'll read through them. Thank you. So Google saw more than 18 million daily malware and phishing emails related to COVID-19 in the second week of April. And that's on top of more than 240 million daily spam messages it sees related to the coronavirus itself. And Microsoft reports that of the millions of targeted messages that they see every day, roughly 60,000 include COVID-19 related malicious attachments or malicious links. And further to this, every country in the world has seen at least one COVID-19 themed attack. And they're not stopping. People think, okay, maybe we're at the tail end and we're starting to go back to work now, maybe 50% of the time. New Zealand they're COVID-free. These malicious people have not stopped with their attacks on what we're doing. And it could be a derivative of COVID-19, whether it be the superannuation payments through the ATO, or just the basic products and services that we all seem to need during this time. And even with the Australian Cybersecurity Centre, they've seen a significant increase in Australians being targeted with COVID-19 themed scams, fraud attempts, and deceptive email schemes. And does all of this really increase the risk when it comes to cybersecurity at work? And it does. So what we've done at KnowBe4, part of our platform, is that we can have a look at the phish-prone percentage, what we call the PPP. And this is a term we use to determine how prone a user is to click on or engage with a simulated phishing email. And we have a look at the detail, we have a look at the quantity that goes out, and we can see, okay, does knowledge and awareness of these phishing emails make a difference when it comes to receiving them? So if we have a look at COVID-19 templates sent out from our platform, we delivered just over 2 million of these, and this was in 2 months, from February and March, and 192,000 of those delivered emails were clicked on. So that's an 8.8% fish-prone percentage of a COVID-19 related template. And have a look at banking now. So the comparison here is we traditionally have a high click-through rate with banking emails, whether they be it's time to change your password, or we've seen some random activity happening on your account, so please change your login. So during that same period of time, just over 1.5 million emails were sent out. Again, these are simulated phishing test emails from our platform, and 59,000 of those failed, which means those people clicked. So that's a 3.73 click-through rate. And now if we have a look at the IT template, this is probably our most popular because it's from IT, it's branded from the internal company with your logo on it. So it will be Delv, for example, sending out this email to all their people saying it's time to change your password. Clearly, if you look really hard and know the red flags to pay attention to, you'll see that it's not real. We sent out over 1.9 million of these to that same group of people, and 137,000, nearly 138,000 failed. So that's a 7.17% failure rate. So since February 2020, our customers were never receiving COVID-19 templates prior to that, but we added them into our platform because it's happening so dramatically out there in the wild, as they call it. So what we could draw some quick conclusions from this is people value their health twice as higher as they value their money in their bank. So they've received that COVID-19 template and responded and taken action really quickly without thinking. And surely in this day and age, you would think that people can get it and they understand, and they don't. And what you're seeing on the screen now is one very, very clear reason as to why they don't get it. So if you want to read along, please do. It doesn't matter in what order the letters in a word are. The only important thing is that the first and last letter be in the right place. The rest can be a total mess and you can still read it without a problem. This is because the human mind does not read every letter itself, but the word as a whole. This is the reason why we fall for these phishing emails. Our brains are set to filter out these words. Even though we think we're brilliant to be able to read this, maybe now you have a bit more of an idea as to why people fall for these emails all the time, because there's often errors, but we don't see them. We're not wanting to look for errors. That's not why we go to our emails. We're not looking for those things that might catch us in a phishing email or social engineering. And because most cyber attacks are the result of an unintentional action driven by our emotion as humans, that's something that really isn't there. Whether it be click here now, or you might not have access to your system tomorrow, the response is to do it really quickly. There are multiple red flags that you need to look out for, and there is no wonder that people click. If we have a look here, this is one of our resources. So from KnowBe4, Social Engineering Red Flags, again, gives you an idea as to why this is such a challenging thing. It's an ongoing problem that we manage. So when it comes to making better security decisions and not clicking, it's not as simple as saying, don't click on phishing emails, because it's complex. If you have a look at who's it from, who was it sent to, what hyperlinks are in there, and people, believe it or not, don't actually know what hover your mouse over a link means. And don't assume that they do. Often you need to take them back to the basics and say, here's what's important, here's why you need to look for these things, and here's the damage that can occur. And remember, 70 to 90% of successful breaches are the result of phishing emails. What date did it come through? What subject? What attachments came through? And what's in the content? We don't have time. We think we're so good to read that text that all the words were jumbled or the letters were jumbled. And this is the reason why things just don't work. So when we look at, there's a lot of clicks here on this one, Shane. When we think about coronavirus and what's happening, people were worried about remote working, social distancing, lack of toilet paper, all the stats with the curve as it flattened, and of course, our favorite Zoom bombing. which, and to Zoom's credit, they've done a really good job in being in such hypergrowth to be able to stop and reevaluate all of their security reasons of what they're doing. I've seen a massive difference in how I feel when I use it. We use Zoom at KnowBe4, and obviously Delv do as well. It's a really good platform, but these things initially added a lot of risks for people. And it can be as basic as reading the instructions on how to set up your privacy, like every single app that we use. So now I'd like to take you through some examples of the in the wild attacks of COVID-19 related. So the first time we have a look at all the different topics, this is a feeding frenzy, and there's information or fact sheets about COVID-19 in these emails, medical supply and personal protective equipment offers. I don't know about you, but if you've gone into any chemist or grocery shop or even Bunnings or Officeworks, there is an abundance now of all of the things that we needed that weren't available a few months ago. At that time, people were sending emails saying, you know, limited stock, get your masks from us, click here, and people were. Shipping and delivery notifications, we can't deliver this because of COVID-19 restrictions, please click here to arrange a new time. COVID-19 test kits, free Netflix, I'm still getting those, free Netflix texts that come through on my phone. Charity donation requests for people in need. Zoom meeting changes, I got one today that was a simulated one. It wasn't real, but it was saying, look, the meeting has changed, please click here. Work from home and productivity software with all the new things we're doing in the new environment. Even now, as we try to work out, okay, how do we go from 100% at home to 50-50? Is it 80-20? How do we do this? That's where the feeding frenzy can come in from the cyber criminals. The COVID-19 vaccinations or cures, no such thing yet. And alerts on people who have COVID-19. So click here, open this attachment and see who in your area has COVID-19. And of course, the recent superannuation scams through the ATO, which is really not nice at all. All right, so now some examples, some immediate stressor events. Now these are actual templates, actual emails that have come from our clients. So people like to use these events to pressure victims, and we are a victim if we do click, unfortunately, into doing things we wouldn't normally do. And in this particular example, the phisher is claiming the victim's email is going to be deactivated, and they need to click here to avoid non-removal of the email. Now, if this is done really sophisticated and is done well, as Shane pointed out before, people will click. They won't think to have a look. They haven't got IT down the road. They can't ask someone next to them, is this a real email? So there's a high chance they'll click. On the next one, these are some merchandise offers, as I mentioned before. So thank goodness, while the world is waiting for a vaccine, one mum found a solution to fight back against the coronavirus outbreak. And you and I, or people who know this, might think, really, people click on this? Yes, they do, in abundance. The assumptions that are prevalent out there in the work environment and also the home environment is that people understand that these things are scams, and they just don't. So it's our job to educate them and bring them in line with what's actually going on out there. Okay, the next one, Shane. A lovely one, some information from the World Health Organization themselves, which they don't send out emails, by the way. Oh, cat's on the table. You just got a tail if you were lucky. So phishers like to push emails claiming to be from the World Health Organization, and they don't send these emails out at all. But again, who knows that? Unless you did your research, you would have no idea that they don't send emails such as this. And this next one, this is some real examples from the cyber.gov.au site from some scams about money, and they look real. And again, if you are in a desperate situation, waiting for confirmation of money, or just hopeful that proactively the government would give you some money, which is happening quite a lot, these scams are everywhere. And yeah, again, you would think surely they're not falling for it. They are. If you click one more time, there's another example on this one, Shane. Now you can see on here, there's different font sizes, there's different text sizes, there's random things on this email, yet people fell for it. I haven't got quantities of actually who, but that's what happens. This contactless delivery notice is an example of someone who can't deliver a product to you. So they're letting you know by saying, look, please click here, give us some more details. The next one is some focus on shelter-in-place brands. So what this means is during situations like this, bad guys know that very popular brands will be also taking advantage in a good way, in a positive way, to help out people from that social justice perspective. So it could be an important message from your bank. Here's an example here from Westpac and the NAB. And again, they don't send these out like this, but if you look at a legitimate SMS sent out by your bank or from a shop, be it Coles or whether it be Netflix, or there was also Woolworths, it's really hard to tell the difference. And my advice is do not, under any circumstances, even if you're 99% sure that an SMS is legitimate, don't click. Make a phone call or go on the website. Normal misspellings and grammar issues. Shane brought this up with the Nigerian prince. They still use them. This is one of my favorites. I love the symptoms. I don't know why, but I found that really interesting. So this particular information of the misspellings and grammar, again, in the example I showed you a little bit earlier, they're not that easy to spot because we're not looking for them unless they're very obvious. Okay, so with all of the things going on, we have smishing as well. And smishing is the SMS-related phishing. Once again, don't assume people know this, they don't. There's so many examples of this, there's hundreds of them. But these are all scams, and these have come from the cyber.gov website and Australia Post. So some very local scams that are going on. And I wouldn't be surprised if we start to receive some USBs in the mail at some point, trying to capture our information that we have while we're working from home and working remotely. So what do you do? Smacking your head on your laptop is probably not the answer, and you might wreck your keyboard, which you don't want to do. So for employers, there's some tips and some hints. Do you have a remote work policy? So if you're providing devices for your people at work and now they're going to bring them back, how does that look? What are they allowed to do or not allowed to do? Will you be giving them two different pieces of equipment to use? And how about a password or passphrase management policy? You'd be surprised how many organizations don't have them. And the next stage from there is how about a password management tool, and make sure that two-factor authentication is actually deployed as often as possible. Are there any relevant procedures and guidelines for remote working and staying secure? A good idea is to reach out to your HR team, who potentially will have some work from home, some health safety related policies that you could be using to add on the IT element and the cybersecurity element. And remember that your users will follow the path of least resistance. And I guarantee you that if you don't give them a solution to how they could share information online, they will create their own Dropbox account and start sharing confidential information. They see it as getting their job done. They just don't think about that organizational security element. And how about your IT support team? If you're on the call here and you're part of an IT support team, this has been really challenging for you. This has changed the way you work. There's a whole lot of opportunities that you can take advantage of to really be the hero in this space, because people understand more than ever just plugging something in or learning how to use a new application isn't that simple. And it is our responsibility as individuals to learn how to use things without that hand-holding occurring. Look at Zoom. I've never seen so many non-tech people work out how to use Zoom so quickly because they had to. So leverage this. It's something you can use in this environment. And reporting suspicious emails. Make sure you have something in place. KnowBe4 has a fish alert button, which makes the process very efficient and very secure, and some other elements when it comes to how to actually manage those phishing emails when they are reported. And interestingly enough, security awareness training. I have it last on here, only because we talk about it on the next slide more in depth. But no matter how effective your technical defences are, criminals will always find a way through. And they know that the people are the weakest link, which can potentially be your strongest asset. So on the next slide, we can talk a little bit about KnowBe4 and our security awareness training. Importantly to note, I've used this product. I've used it for 2 years prior to joining KnowBe4. And part of the reason for joining was it is such an incredible product to use. It does everything you need to be able to implement a very robust security awareness education program across your whole entire organization that you can actually monitor and manage in a very easy way. So the baseline testing is the first part. So we can provide that fish-prone percentage, as I mentioned before, without telling anybody, see where your people are at, whether it be a group of 100, 500, 5,000 or 50,000. We can look at all of it. It's all scalable. Once you find out where they're at with their fish prone, then you can start to train them and say, look, we did a test and we know that 30% of you failed this particular test that we sent out. That's okay, we're going to train you. You're not meant to know this. This is something very different. So the training includes some amazing interactive models for, nearly lost my laptop with the cat jumping up. I've managed the situation now. So with our modules that we have, some Netflix style education pieces that have won awards at Cannes called the Inside Man. This was the first and only time I've ever been requested to send out all of the training in one lot. It's the most different training I've ever experienced. Yes, you can have all your e-learning pieces and videos and quizzes. There's posters. There's also elements for newsletters you can use. There's different long stuff for the exec team, and also you can sit in a group and watch all this training. And the topics, there's over, I think up to over 1,500 different elements we've got on our platform. While you're training them every month, you want to fish them as well. So you want to send as many simulated phishing attacks that you can out to all of your people. You can also look at bringing them into roles and groups. So your exec team, you might want to send something different. To sales, you might want to send them something specific that they might not be quite prepared for. And this is not about entrapment. This is not about calling people out or shaming people. This is about educating people and giving them an opportunity to learn from their mistakes in a safe environment. And it works. You can see the results, the reports and the dashboards. You can see, wow, this particular individual doesn't fall for any of our phishing simulations. What are they doing different to everyone else? Or this particular group in finance continues to fall for phishing simulations with invoices. So let's do some targeted training for them. And you can have a look at the risk profile of your people as well in your workplace. Now, just to show it does work, this graph, it looks like exactly what I experienced where I was before. So sending out that initial baseline, on average, when we have a look at 4 million users that we tested who had been on our platform for at least 12 months, what we found is the average fish-prone percent of a baseline test was 37.9%. So right now, think if 37.9% of your workforce would fail an initial fish-prone test. Then after 3 months of training, and that's not hours and hours a week of training, that's very targeted, very relevant and engaging new school security awareness training every week for maybe 10 minutes, maybe if that, even a month if that's what suits you, you'll find that will drop down to 14.1% for fish prone, which is amazing. Look 12 months down the track and you're going to be at the average of 4.7% of a click-through from a phishing simulated test. So it does work. And the good news is that the industry benchmarking is available on our platform as well. So you can actually see how you and your organization fit from all industries around the globe, or just some local industries that are more relevant to you. For example, it could be finance and insurance industry. Something for employees. What about the employees? We've developed this really useful cyber health safety checklist. If you recall back to when we all started to go working from home, often we were given a OC health and safety or a work health and safety checklist. You know, make sure our desk was or our screen was the right height and our chair was in the right position with our feet on the floor. No one provided a safety health checklist for cyber, and here it is. So what this does, most importantly, you must look at your company policies and procedures first. This doesn't take off any of that. This is an additional resource. Setting up your desk, email and messaging. What's your environment like? What's behind you on your whiteboard? Your apps and devices, what are you using, and have you set up all the security measures? Your information and data, just the things to be aware of, and also passphrases. We're moving away from passwords because it is a passphrase. Okay, what else do we have for employers? We have a recap. So today, I do hope in the last 40 odd minutes that you understand a little bit more about the current cyber threat landscape for remote working. And those examples have given you a little bit to think about. Some considerations for employers. If you don't have them in place, there's some really good ones there for you. And some considerations for employees. It's not too hard. Reach out if you have any questions. And thank you so much. Back to you, Shane. You're on mute, Shane.
I'm
There we
muting
are.
myself. Thank you. I was just
You're
about
back.
to say this.
And thank you for your help there, Shane.
No, thank you. I was about to say, Jacqueline, it was fantastic as always. I think when we talk about this new way of working and the new normal, I might need a refresher on Zoom to an extent. So we'll see, that'll come. But this is the testing times we find themselves in. Just to recap though, I think a lot of what Jacqueline was saying there, as you can see from the very detailed information that Jacqueline's provided us now, there is a real need to start with the human first and their understanding of both their organization and their own personal environment. And this is how we're helping businesses accommodate and adapt to these new and existing threats. All of this information is actually covered, that we've covered today, is included in a very easily consumed bundle package, which we will be distributing after the webinar for everyone to have a look over. It outlines in simple terms what we can provide to help ensure both organisational and employee safety, and not just for this current climate we're in, but also for the future, because this, to Jacqueline's point, this will never stop or go away. This is part of how we communicate and exist in today's day and age. Now, at a high level within that brochure, the bundle covers a number of items that were discussed today. So we have the KnowBe4 security awareness training, which is an enterprise awareness training program that integrates baseline testing through mock attacks, while also including interactive web-based training and assessment. We have the KnowBe4 security tools, allowing you to test both your users and the network with tools to assess and protect from phishing, email security and malware. The KnowBe4 Home Internet Security Awareness course. The Home Internet Security Awareness course, this is a bit of a mouthful, but from KnowBe4, it'll teach your employees and their families, which I think is fantastic, about password safety, personal information safety, online banking protection, as well as protecting children online. And finally, there's the Cloud and Identity Risk Assessment, where a team of cybersecurity experts will assess your cloud identity and access management risk profile, giving you multi-dimensional visibility and insight into who in your environment has access to your cloud infrastructure, what operations are they authorized to execute, and which resources have they impacted. Now, obviously, if anyone would like to know anything more or discuss these items within the bundle in a deeper dive or a further discussion, we'd be more than happy to accommodate with a follow-up session. So please have a look at the bundles that we're going to distribute, but then please afterwards feel free to reach out. So there we have it, a little bit of lag and back and forth, but we got there in the end. I ask it now, if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A section and we can cover them off. Otherwise, the ones that are already in there, I saw it going off a little bit before. I think we'll tackle them now.
Okay.
So if we just...
So we have anonymous. Can I use this across my organisation, or do I have to specify users? You can use it across the whole organisation, or you could specify specific people to start with, for example. Any other additions from you guys at Delv? Oh, it's gone.
Yep. So we've got here, does the home course become available to my staff family without reporting?
Yes, it does. You might have seen that home course on the checklist. So KnowBe4 have a very extensive free cybersecurity home course available to everyone. For anyone in the family, it's really quite useful. So from a beginner basic level.
Yeah, and there's probably another one for yourself, Jacqueline. Do I need to install software for this, or is it IT training?
IT training. Well, the platform is cloud-based, so it's a matter of going through the process and saying, yep, here's what we need, and off we go. It actually has its own SCORM, which is a LMS, a learning management system within the platform. So to be, how would you put it? The simplest way is you don't need anything to use every single thing that the platform provides.
I think you did mention as well that it can tie in with Active Directory.
Yes, it can. Correct.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's good. And we also have, how does the licensing model work?
I believe, now I'm not in sales, so I don't want to say the wrong thing, but I do know as a previous client that you're looking at a 1 or 3 year per user. All the pricing is on our website, by the way. It's very transparent for everyone to see. It is a very reasonably priced product, especially when you consider what is available for you. So you can do that annual model with seats, so to speak.
Okay, and then we also have, I missed the start. Can I get a copy of the deck, or is there a replay? So there will be a replay that will be distributed out as well. So you're more than happy to go back and watch whatever you missed from the start and cover it off again.
Absolutely.
Watch it on loop.
Get the popcorn, have a seat.
Yeah.
Now, who creates the training? Great question. Professional people create the training. We have partnerships and we work closely with quite a few organizations to bring to you the absolute best training that is available. And as I mentioned, that Inside Man, the series, which has now just had series 2, so there's about 12 episodes per series. This is Netflix quality. It is remarkable. So, and I believe you can see a little bit of this on our website and even talk to Delv. I'm sure they'll be able to take you through this.
100%.
Yep, there you go. So the training it's e-learning, it's cartoon based, it's all different languages, it's translated. I don't even want to hazard a guess at how many now it's been translated into. 20 or 30 languages, I would say. But yeah, the training is developed by professionals.
Is this government certified? We just had one drop in just now.
Any clarification on what that means, government certified? As in, has any additional information?
Yeah.
Question, anonymous attendee? Maybe not. Any other questions while we have some further clarification on that one?
I think that looks like it at the moment.
Oh, have any government agencies reviewed and approved? No, not that I'm aware of, but we have a lot of government agencies using it. Can't obviously say who, but quite a few in the Australian market and also globally. From an American point of view, we have gone through a very stringent process over there to be on that list of approved people for the American government. And I'm pretty confident that we've gone through a very similar process here with Cordit. I'm not 100% sure, though. It would be wrong for me to say absolutely. But yes, if there was something specific that an agency or an organisation had in mind, they could even upload it themselves to the platform from a compliance point of view. But we do look at a global requirement for information.
Okay, and we've just actually had another one drop in. Is there an option to trial this offering?
Yes, there is, of course. Again, chat with Delv, they'll be able to tell you everything you need to know. I trialed it too when I started with the product.
Okay, so I think that's it. Again, we will be distributing these, so if anyone has any sort of follow-up they want to put into an email or reach out to us over the phone, more than happy to have these discussions offline and follow them through.
Yep.
Otherwise, I'd like to thank everyone again for their time today. I do hope that you find value out of the great information that Jacqueline has presented today. As I said, if you have any other questions following up the webinar, I implore you to sort of reach out and we can catch up. Otherwise, I thank you all for your time. I hope you enjoyed the webinar and I hope that you actually start putting, if you haven't already, some real thought into that human component of security in an organization, because they as Jacqueline said, they can be the weakest link or the strongest link. I think it's a very important aspect of a cybersecurity approach to look at the person first. So with that, thank you all very much, guys. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.